Welcome, 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 everyone, to Bookaccino Live for Wednesday, February 8th. I'm presenting titles for February and teasing some books for March and April as well. If you've got any questions, if you could drop them into the Q&A, and we'll get to those later on. Those of you who are live, if you could jump into chat and let us know what you're reading, where you're from. We love to see that we reach people all across the country with this presentation. So now we have to do the next thing is see how I can make the slides go forward. There we go. Yay. Oh, everybody, this is so nice. Your top picks from January's presentation. This is always so much fun for us to see. The Mitford Affair by Marie Benedict was once again your #1 selection. It's #1 during the preview and #1 now. Lisa Scottolini's Loyalty, her next historical thriller coming on in March, is your next pick. William Landay, boy, he hasn't been back with a book in a while. You all remember Defending Jacob. All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me. Reef Road by Deborah Goodrich Royce. That was my first bets on selection for the year, and so many of you have embraced reading it. Allegra Goodman's Sam and Jane Harper's Exiles. And the last three of those authors I've interviewed. Jane Harper's interview will be going up at the end of the week, and the others I'm looking forward to getting to somewhere along the way. Marie, you know, has been with us many, many times before, and so has Lisa. So remember our survey question last month? And we asked you, do you use Goodreads? 32% of you said, yes, I read the reviews there. 25% said I read the reviews there and I post my reviews some of the time. 21% said I read reviews there and I post my reviews all of the time. Only 10% are not interested in Goodreads. 3% said I don't not use Goodreads, but I'd like to. So jump on later on, make yourself an account and do some looking around. And 8% were all kinds of other answers. Then we asked, well, how many books are on your to be read pile? Not surprisingly, 64% of you have more than 10. You're in my camp. 18% have 6 to 10 and 18% have 1 to 5. So the people with the 36%, your copies aren't going to fall over on you. My books could absolutely slay me, I'm convinced. And for fiction, we're going to get right into it. What we're looking for from February with some teas of March and April. First book is James Rollins, The Cradle of Ice. This is the second book in his Moonfall series following the Starless Crown. Last year when Austin was with us, he actually interviewed him about the Starless Crown and what he was doing with the series. To stop the coming apocalypse, a fellowship was formed. A soldier, a thief, a lost prince, and a young girl bonded by fate and looming disaster. Each step along the way has changed the party, forging deep alliances and greater enemies. All the while, hostile forces have hunted them down, fearing what they might unleash. Armies wage war around them, for each step has come with a cost in blood, in loss, in heartbreak. And now they must split, traveling into a vast region of ice, and to a sprawling capital of the world they've only known in stories. Time is running out, and only truth will save us all. Next, we've got Maureen, and it's by Rachel Joyce, and you probably remember her as the author of The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and with the story that continued in the love song of Miss Queenie Hennessy. This book is going to stand alone, but it's also a moving finale to that trilogy. So Maureen and Harold Fry have settled into a quiet life. But when an unexpected message from the North disturbs their peaceful equilibrium, Maureen realizes it's now her turn to make a journey. But she's not like her affable, easygoing husband. By turns outspoken, then vulnerable, she struggles to form bonds with the people she meets. And the landscape she crosses has radically changed. She has no sense of what she will find at the end of the road. All she knows is she has to get there. So there's Maureen. Next, from Jojo Moyes, we've got Someone Else's Shoes. You know her as the author of The Giver of Stars and so many other books that have been well-loved through the years. Nisha Cantor leaves a globe-trotting life of the seriously wealthy until her husband announces a divorce and cuts her off. Nisha is determined to hang on to her glamorous life, but in the meantime, she must scramble to cope. She doesn't even have the shoes she wore until like a moment ago, she was standing in. That's because Sam Kemp, in the bleakest point of her life, has accidentally taken Nisha's gym bag. But Sam hardly has time to worry about a lost gym bag. She's struggling to keep herself and her family afloat. when she tries on Nisha's 6-inch high Christian Louboutin red crocodile shoes, the resulting jolt of confidence makes her realize something must change, and that thing is herself. Back to my magazine days, the Louboutin shoes with the red soles as well. So red cover, yes, people, someone else's shoes. Here we've got Spell of Good Things. It's read by Ayubami Adebayo. I read a book by her years ago that absolutely stayed with me, and the book was called Stay With Me. And now she's back. And this story, Eniola is tall for his age, a boy who looks like a man. Because his father has lost his job, Eniola spends his days running errands for the local tailor, collecting newspapers, begging when he must, and dreaming of a big future. I'm going to see if I can do this. Tom, I always practice these things. And then Wooyarola is a golden girl, the perfect child of a wealthy family. Now an exhausted young doctor in her first year of practice, she's beloved by Cooney, the volatile son of an ascendant politician. When a local politician takes an interest in Eniola and sudden violence shatters a family party, their lives become intertwined. So this is the spell of good things. Her writing is so brilliant. She's from Nigeria, and she just completely captivates you with her storytelling. Next, I have some questions for you by Rebecca Makkai, and you're probably going to remember her as the author of the Pulitzer Prize finalist, The Great Believers. A successful film producer and podcaster, Bodie Kane is content to forget her past, a family tragedy that marred her adolescence, her 4 largely miserable years at a New Hampshire boarding school, and the murder of her former roommate, Thalia Keith, in the spring of their senior year. Although the circumstances surrounding Thalia's death and the conviction of her school athletic trainer, Omar Evans, are hotly debated online, Bodie needs to let sleeping dogs lie. But when the Granby School invites her back to teach a course, Bodie is inexorably drawn to the case and its increasingly apparent flaws. In their rush to convict Omar, did the school and the police overlook other suspects? Is the real killer still out there? So Rebecca, I have some questions for you. Next, we're going to do some historical fiction. I'm going to kick it off with an author that I know many of you love. It's Pam Jenoff, really handles World War II history so well. So it's 1942. Hannah Martel has narrowly escaped Nazi Germany after her fiance was killed in a pogrom. When her ship bound for America is turned away at port, she has nowhere to go but to her cousin Lily, who lives with her family in Brussels. Fearful for her life, Hannah is desperate to get out of occupied Europe. But with no safe way to leave, she must return to the dangerous underground work she thought she had left behind. Seeking help, Hannah joins the Sapphire Line, a secret resistance network led by a mysterious woman named Micheline and her enigmatic brother, Matteo. But when a grave mistake causes Lily's family to be arrested and slated for deportation to Auschwitz, Hannah finds herself torn between her loyalties. How much is Hannah willing to sacrifice to save the people she loves? So there's codename Sapphire. Next, we've got The House of Eve. It's by Sadiqa Johnson. I absolutely loved her debut historical fiction, Yellow Wife. It's out this week. It's a Reese's Book Club pick, and it's Simon & Schuster's Book Club favorites pick for February. I love this book. I'm going to be interviewing her. I can't even get an interview with her until March. She has an extensive tour schedule, and it's definitely a bets on. 1950s Philadelphia, 15-year-old Ruby Pearsall is on track to become the first in her family to attend college. But a taboo love affair threatens to pull her right back down to the poverty and desperation that has been passed on to her like a birthright. Eleanor Quarles arrives in Washington, D.C. with ambition and secrets. When she meets the handsome William Pride at Howard University, they fall madly in love. But William hails from one of D.C.'s elite wealthy Black families. Eleanor hopes that a baby will make her finally feel home in William's family. Having a baby and fitting in is easier said than done. With their stories colliding in the most unexpected ways, Ruby and Eleanor will both make decisions that shape the trajectory of their lives. And I will tell you that careful readers are also going to see that there's something of Yellow Wife that's woven into the story as well. Highly recommend this one. And we've got Victory City from Salman Rushdie. It's out this week. In the wake of an unimportant battle between two long-forgotten kingdoms in 14th century southern India, a 9-year-old girl has a divine encounter that will change the course of history. After witnessing the death of her mother, the grief-stricken Campania becomes a vessel for her namesake, the goddess Pampa, who begins to speak out of the girl's mouth. Granted her powers beyond Pampa's comprehension, the goddess tells her that she will be instrumental in the rise of a great city called Bisnaga, Victory City, the wonder of the world. Over the next 250 years, Pampa's life becomes deeply interwoven with Bisnaga's. Whispering Bisnaga and its citizens into existence, Pampa attempts to make good on the task that the goddess set for her, to give women equal agency in a patriarchal world. There's Victory City. Next, we've got Women with the Cure by Lynn Cohen. It's coming out on February 21st. 1940s and 50s America, polio is as dreaded as the atomic bomb. Some of the world's best minds are engaged to find a race to find the vaccine. The man who succeeds will be God. But Dorothy Horstman is not focused on beating her colleagues to the vaccine. She just wants the world to have a cure. Applying the same determination that lifted her from a humble background as a daughter of immigrants to becoming a doctor, she hunts down the monster where it lurks, in the blood. This discovery of hers, and an error by a competitor, catapults her closest colleague to lead in the race. But when his chance to win becomes a worldwide scale, she's asked to sync or validate his vaccine and decide what is forgivable and how much should be sacrificed in pursuit of the cure. It's got a beautiful cover on it as well. Bonnie Garmis, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry, says, huge applause. Women have always been in science, despite those who would like to pretend otherwise. And it's interesting to see Bonnie, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry, being the blurber on so many books coming up. And I was reading so many of her quotes these last couple of days and thinking, it's nice that she's got a seat at the table in a different way besides just becoming an author. Go as a River by Shelley Reed is an absolutely beautiful book. I started reading this one. It's one of these books that I really, really want to take the time to read. Bonnie Garmis is once again here calling it completely unforgettable, and I will agree. It takes place, let me just give you some background for me, in a part of Colorado that means a lot to me. It's along the Gunnison River and that whole area, which is actually the area where I met my husband. And as a result, this book has very special meaning. And there's another something that's going to happen with this book that I want to get on your radar, something that I didn't know as much time as I've spent out there. 17-year-old Victoria Nash runs the household on her family's peach farm in a small ranch town of Iola, Colorado, the sole surviving female in a family of troubled men. Wilson Moon is a young drifter with a mysterious past, displaced from his tribal land and determined to live the life he chooses. And the two of these men meet on a street corner, and the opening pages are just so wonderful of the way that she's following him and he's catching her doing it. Really, really fun. So Victoria encounters Will by chance on a street corner, a meeting that profoundly alters both of their young lives. Tragedy strikes. Victoria leaves the only life she's ever known. She flees into the surrounding mountains where she struggles to survive in the wilderness with no clear notion of what her future will bring. As the seasons change, she also charts the changes in herself, finding in the beautiful but harsh landscape the meaning and strength to move forward and rebuild all that she has lost, even as the Gunnison River threatens to submerge her homeland, its ranches, farms, and the beloved peach orchard that has been in her family for generations. Iola is one of those towns that was buried when they built the Mesa Dam and Reservoir out in Colorado. And very interesting, I did some research on this morning. In 2018, as there was a drought that was happening, and the reservoir was bare of water in many, many places, you could actually see remnants of the town of Iola. So if you read this book, I recommend you go and do that later on, because just imagine there's been water over it all this time, and then what you see underneath at this time. Really interesting. Loving this book, loving the beauty of her writing. She's somebody who went back to write much older in life. I'm looking forward to interviewing her closer to publication. Next, we've got The Levee by William Kent Kruger. And this is something that's different for Kent. It's a novella and it's an audio original, and it's read by J.D. Jackson. It's coming on February 28th. And it's very interesting because this is a story that Kent wrote a while back. And it wasn't going to be a full book, but it was just a story that encapsulated so well. And Simon & Schuster was looking for audio originals, and this story just completely fit with what's going on. We're going to be seeing more audio originals coming. Some of them are shorts and some of them are longs. For those who haven't listened to audiobooks, it's a nice way to dip in because it's not a full-length book. It's a novella, and it's a chance for you to enjoy audio enjoy your favorite authors in a completely different way. It's on sale on February 28th. It's 1927, and the most devastating flood in American history has swelled the Mississippi River to a width of 80 miles. In an attempt to save a family trapped by the rising water, 4 men in a tiny rowboat battled a treacherous flow. 3 are convicts on loan from the local prison and pressed into service. The 4th, the leader of the team, is driven by his own hidden motives. But to their surprise, upon arrival in Ballymore, an ancestral home protected by a high circular levee, not everyone in the family feels the need to be saved. Pride, greed, loyalty, and even love create their own complex currents behind the massive wall. As a threat from the flood, it increases and time ticks away, the crew and family must decide on a course of action, and a desperate plan is hatched to save the weakening levee and all it was built to protect. It's a short novella. It's a nice way to experience Kent besides reading a full novel by him. And I've listened to J.D. Jackson's performance, and it's absolutely terrific. At the end, there's also an author's note that is going to be read by Kent. Next, we've got Stars in an Italian Sky by Jill Santopolo, and it's coming on February 28th. Genoa, Italy, 1946. Vincenzo and Giovanni fall in love at 21, the moment they set eyes on each other. The son of a count and the daughter of a tailor, they belong to opposing worlds. Despite this, the undeniable spark between them quickly burns to a deep and passionate relationship, spent exploring each other's minds, bodies, and their city, as well as Vincenzo's family's sprawling vineyard, Villa della Rosa, until shifts in political power force them each to choose a side and commit what the other believes is betrayal, shattering the bright future they dreamed of together. So let's move to New York in 2017. Cassandra and Luca are in love, although neither quite fits with the other's family. Casa and Luca have always felt like the perfect match for each other. But when Luca, an artist, convinced his grandfather and Casa's grandmother to pose for a painting, past and present collide and reveal a secret that changes everything. Adriana Trigiani, who wrote The Good Left Undone, says, this is a shimmering love story for the ages, bellissima. Next, we've got some thrillers and mysteries. We're kicking it off with Tom Rob Smith. Many of you know him as the best-selling author of Child 44. It's on sale this week. The world has fallen. Without warning, a mysterious and omnipotent force has claimed the planet for their own. There are no negotiations, no demands, no reasons given for their actions. All they have is a message. Humanity has 30 days to reach the one place on Earth where they will be allowed to exist, Antarctica. Cold People follows the perilous journeys of a handful of those who endure the frantic exodus to the most extreme environment on the planet. But their goal is not merely to survive the present, because as they cling to life on the ice, the remnants of their past are swept away. They also must confront the urgent challenge. Can they change and evolve rapidly enough to ensure humanity's future? Can they build a new society in the sub-zero cold? There's Cold People, and boy, that cover says it all. Next, we've got a Dangerous Education by Megan Chance. And I picked this up the other day and I was reading it. A really interesting, well-done story. It's out this week. Rosemary Chivers is haunted by the choices she made as a teenager and by those made for her by a controlling mother. Now in the Cold War era of conformity and suspicion, Rosemary is a modern new teacher at a school for troubled girls. She happens to know that one of the students is the child she gave up. But which one? Ignoring warnings, Rosemary forms an impenetrable bond with the 3 girls who are her right age, not ordinary girls. What begins as an effort to bring closure to her own rebellious youth soon spirals dangerously out of control. Rosemary is prepared to do anything to find her daughter. What she isn't prepared for is the deadly consequences that come with discovery, or just how wicked wayward girls can be. And it's interesting because I read this shortly after I was reading Sadiqa's book, and you're talking about women who had become pregnant, and it was a time where you were sent away and what happened. And there's two stories up against each other, white women, Black women. Very interesting to see how the stories were handled. Now we've got The House Guest by Hank Philippi Ryan. It's one of our winter reading 24-hour contests. It's a book reporter bets on that I wrote about yesterday in our on sale this week newsletter. And I'm going to be talking to her next Monday, which is going to be a challenge because Hank is an on-air multi-Emmy award-winning newscaster or reporter, up in Boston. And she interviews many, many, many authors. So it'll be interesting to be on the other side. Elizabeth Callan is terrified when she's dumped by her wealthy and powerful husband. With a devastating divorce looming, she begins to suspect her toxic, manipulative, soon-to-be ex is scheming to ruin her. And when the FBI shows up at her door, she knows she really needs a friend. And then she gets one, a seductive new friend, one who's running from a dangerous relationship of their own. Alyssa offers Bree Lawrence safety of her guest house, and the two become confidants. And then Bree makes a heart-stopping, tempting offer. Maybe Alyssa and Bree can solve each other's problems. No one's what they've seen. And the fates and fortunes of these two women twist and turn until the shocking truth emerges at the end. What's really interesting is she finds this woman in a bar, and they said to you, never trust who you meet in the bar. Goes for the women that you meet in the bar just as well. Story goes back and forth. It's twisted. You'll have to suspend belief a little bit at one point, but by the same token, it's so good. And it's completely twisty the way everything ends up unfolding. Cliff's Edge by Charles Todd is coming out on February 14th. Restless and uncertain of her future in the wake of World War I, former battlefield nurse Bess Crawford agrees to travel to Yorkshire to help a friend of her cousin Melinda through surgery. But circumstances change suddenly when news of a terrible accident reaches them. Bess agrees to go to the isolated Scarfdale and the Neville family, where one man has been killed and another gravely injured. The police are asking questions, and Bess is quickly drawn into the fray as two once close families take sides. When another tragedy strikes, the police are ready to make an arrest. But what dark truth is behind these deaths? And what about the tale of an older murderer, one that doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Nevilles? So there's The Cliff's Edge. Next, we've got The Last Orphan by Gregg Hurwitz. It's coming on February 14th. As a child, Evan Smoke was raised and trained as an off-the-books assassin for the government as part of the Orphan program. When he broke with it, he remade himself as a nowhere man, dedicated to helping the most desperate in their times of trouble. And he's slowly back on government's radar, but Orphan X is always ahead, several steps ahead of his pursuer, till he makes one little mistake. Now the president has him in her control and offers Evan a deal. Eliminate a rich, powerful man she says is too dangerous to live, and she'll let him survive. When Evan left the program, he swore to only use his skills against those who really deserve it. Now he has to decide what's more important, his principles or his life. Everyone knows I have a crush on Evan Smoke, so the fact this is coming out on Valentine's Day, totally cool. Okay, it's One of Us by J.T. Ellison. I am reading this right now. It's coming out on February 21st. It's one of our winter reading books. I'm going to try and set up an interview with her as well. Olivia Bender desperately wants to be a mother, but fertility treatments and IVF keep failing. Just when she feels she's at her lowest point, the police deliver shocking news to Olivia and her husband, Park. DNA results show that Park's son is the prime suspect in a murder investigation. Olivia is relieved, knowing this is a mistake. Benders don't have any children. And then a confession. Many years ago, Park donated sperm to a clinic. He has no idea how many times it was sold or how many children he's sired. As the murder investigation goes deeper, more terrible truths come to light. With every late revelation, Olivia must face the unthinkable. The man that she's married to has fathered a killer. But can she hold that against him when she keeps some deep, dark secrets of her own? This is absolutely crazy. Ruth Ware calls it a heart-stopping thriller about the price, secrets, and layers behind every marriage. I need to ask my husband tonight, do you have any secrets? The Last Kingdom by Steve Berry is coming on February 21st. King Ludwig II of Bavaria was an enigmatic figure who was deposed in 1886, mysteriously drowning 3 days later. Eccentric to the point of madness, history tells us that in the years before he died, Ludwig engaged in a worldwide search for a new kingdom, a place he could retreat into and rule as he wished. The question remains, did he succeed? Enter Steve Berry's protagonist, Cotton Malone. After many months, Malone's protege, Luke Daniels, has managed to infiltrate a renegade group intent on winning Bavarians' independence from Germany. And a race across Bavaria for clues hidden in Ludwig's 3 fairy tale castles. Okay, let's see if I can do these. Neuschwanstein, Linderhof, and guys, you figure that one out yourself. It ends with C. Malone and Daniels battle an ever-growing list of deadly adversaries, all intent on finding the last kingdom. Not only was the King Ludwig trying to do different things, there were definitely different names he was coming up with. The names alone will keep him hidden. Next, we've got a couple of my memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. We're starting with We Should Not Be Friends by Will Schwabe. And I absolutely love Will Schwabe's last book, which was The End of Your Life Book Club. He had written that when his mom was dying of cancer, and the two of them decided to form a book club together, and they both read books and talked about them. And probably one of the most poignant moments was he found the book that they were reading on her book stand after she passed away. And it was like right to the end, the two of them were reading and being wonderful book lovers together. If you hadn't read that one, check it out. So let's talk about this one. By the time Will Schwabe was a junior in college, he already had met everyone he cared to know. He knew exactly who he wanted to avoid, the jocks. The jocks wore baseball caps and moved in packs, filling boisterous tables in the dining hall, and on the whole seemed to be another species entirely. All this changed dramatically when Bill collided with Chris Maxey, known to just about everyone as Maxey. He was physically imposing, loud, and a star wrestler who was determined to become a Navy SEAL. Thanks to the strangely liberating circumstances of a little-known secret society at Yale, the two forged a bond that became a mainstay of each other's lives as they repeatedly lost and found each other and themselves in the years after graduation. I just love stories like this, where it's a friendship that was formed years ago and you come in and out of each other's lives. Now we've got The Exceptions. This is coming on February 28th. 1999, Massachusetts Institute of Technology admitted to discriminating against women on its faculty, forcing institutions across the country to confront a problem that they had long ignored, the need for more women at the top levels of science. Written by journalists who broke the story for the Boston Globe, The Exceptions is the untold story of how 16 highly accomplished women on the MIT faculty came together to do the work that triggered the historic admission. It centers on the life of Nancy Hopkins, a reluctant feminist who became the leader of the 16 and a hero to 2 generations of women in science. So there we've got The Exceptions. March titles to look forward to, and it's going to be quite a month. First, we've got Clytemnestra, which is coming out on March 7th. It was one of our contest titles on winter reading earlier this month. You were born to a king, but you marry a tyrant. You stand helplessly as he sacrifices your child to placate the gods. You watch him wage war on a foreign shore, and you comfort yourself with violent thoughts of your own, because this was not the first offense against you. This was not the life you ever deserved, and this will not be your undoing. Slowly you plot. When your husband returns in triumph, you become a woman with a choice. Acceptance or vengeance, infamy follows both. So you bide your time and force the gods' hands in the game of retribution. For you understand something long ago that others never did. If power isn't given to you, you have to take it for yourself. Next, we've got Margaret Atwood, Old Babes in the Woods. You know her as the author of The Handmaid's Tale and the Testaments. Coming on March 7th. A collection of 15 stories, some of which have appeared in the New Yorker and the New York Times Magazine, looks deeply into the heart of family relationships, marriage, loss, and memory, and what it means to spend a life together. Two intrepid sisters of the story grapple with the loss and memory on a perfect summer evening. Impatient Griselda explores alienation and miscommunication with a fresh twist on a folkloric classic. And My Evil Mother touches on the fantastical, examining a mother-daughter relationship in which a mother purports to be a witch. At the heart of the collection are 7 stories that follow a married couple across decades, the moments big and small that make up a long life of uncommon love and what comes after. So there we've got Old Babes in the Woods. Next, from Harlan Coben, we've got I Will Find You. David Burroughs was once a devoted father to his 3-year-old son, Matthew, living a dream life just a short drive away from the working class suburb where he and his wife, Cheryl, first fell in love. Until one fateful night when David woke suddenly to discover Matthew had been murdered while David was asleep just down the hall. Half a decade later, David has been wrongly accused and convicted of the murder, left to serve out his time in a maximum security prison. Then Cheryl's younger sister, Rachel, makes a surprise appearance during visiting hours, bearing a strange photograph. It's a vacation shot of a bustling amusement park a friend shared with her, and in the background is a boy bearing an eerie resemblance to David's son. Even though it can't be, David just knows Matthew is still alive. Next, we've got Earth, the Right Place for Love by Elizabeth Berg, also coming on March 21st. Noah McCollum is the most desirable girl in Arthur Moses' class, and he's thrilled when they become friends. But Arthur wants more than friendship, and unfortunately, Noah has a crush on the wrong Moses, Arthur's older brother, Frank, who is busy pursuing his own love interest and avoiding the boy's father, a war veteran with a drinking problem and a penchant for starting fights. When a sudden tragedy rocks the family's world, Arthur struggles to come to terms with his grief. In the end, it is nature that helps him understand how to go on beyond loss and create a life of forgiveness and empathy. But what can he do about Nola, who seems confused about what she wants in life and only half aware of the one who loves her most? So there we've got Earth's the Right Place for Love. We've got The White Lady from Jacqueline Winspear, and this is a novel that is out of the series that she typically does. A reluctant ex-spy with demons of her own, Eleanor White finds herself facing down one of the most dangerous organized crime gangs in post-World War II London, ultimately exposing corruption from Scotland Yard, the highest levels of government. Miss White, as Eleanor is known, lives in a village in rural Kent, England, and to her fellow villagers seems something of an enigma. It will take Susie, the child of a young farm worker, Jim Makkai, and his wife Rose to break through Miss White's icy demeanor. But Jim has something in common with Eleanor. He too is desperate to escape his past. When the powerful Makkai crime family demands a return of their prodigal son for an important job, Eleanor assumes the task of protecting her neighbors. Yet in her quest to uncover the truth behind the family's pursuit of Jim, she unwittingly sets on a treacherous path with The White Lady. Here's some March titles that were featured in January's presentation. Starting with William Landay's All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me. It's coming on March 7th. One afternoon in 1975, 10-year-old Miranda Larkin comes home from school to find her house eerily quiet. Her mother is missing. Nothing else is out of place. There's no sign of a struggle. Her mother's pocketbook remains in the front hall in its usual spot. So begins a mystery that will span a lifetime. What happened to Jane Larkin? Investigators suspect Jane's husband, criminal defense attorney Dan Larkin, surely be an expert on outfoxing the police. But no evidence is found linking to a crime, and the case fades from the public memory. Jane's 3 children, Alex, Jeff, and Miranda, are left to be raised by the man who may have murdered their mother. 2 decades later, the remains of Jane Larkin are found, and the investigation is awakened. The children, now grown, are forced to choose sides. So All That's Mine I Carry With Me, the author of Defending Jacob. Next, we've got the author of The Lost Apothecary, was a book which many of you loved. It's the London Séance Society. It's also coming on March 7th. It's 1873 at an abandoned chateau on the outskirts of France. A dark séance is about to take place, led by acclaimed spiritualist Madeleine de Allaire. Known worldwide for her talent conjuring the spirits of murder victims to ascertain the identities of the people who killed them, she's highly sought after by widows and investigators alike. Lena Wicks has come to Paris to find answers about her sister's death, but to do so, she must embrace the unknown and overcome her own logic-driven bias against the occult. When Vaudeline is beckoned to England to solve a high-profile murder, Lena accompanies her as an understudy. But as the women team up with powerful men of London's exclusive Séance society to solve the mystery, they begin to suspect that they are not merely out to solve a crime, but perhaps entangled in one themselves. So you've got the London Séance Society. Hello, Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. She is the author of Dear Edward, okay, which is actually just begun airing as a series on Apple TV. I watched 3 episodes the other night and was completely riveted watching it. I confess that I didn't read the book, so I'm not sure of how they're tracking. I know it's really bad. I didn't read the book, like bad Carol, but I did not read the book in advance, but I'm really enjoying how the story is unfolding here. And those of you who have read the book and watch, I'd be very curious to see like what's the same and what's different. In this book, William Waters grew up in a home silenced by tragedy, where his parents could hardly bear to look at him, much less love him. So when he meets the spirited and ambitious Julia Padovano in his freshman year of college, it's as if the world is lit up around him. With Julia comes her family. She and her 3 sisters are inseparable. The Padovanos, William experiences a newfound contentment. Every moment in their house is filled with loving chaos. But the darkness from William's past surfaces, jeopardizing not only Julia's carefully orchestrated plans for their future, but the sisters' unshakable devotion to one another. The result is a catastrophic family rift that changes their lives for generations. Will the loyalty that once rooted them be strong enough to draw them back together when it matters most? It's absolutely stunning cover. I like the brushstrokes on the covers. And there are moments where I just sit here and look at all these covers and how they're completely different. And I would love to interview some of the design people and see like how they created these covers along the way. I might do that with some interesting designers, make an interesting evening conversation. Next, we've got Hang the Moon by Jeannette Walls, which is coming out on March 28th. Sally Kincaid is the daughter of charismatic Duke Kincaid. Born at the turn of the 20th century into a life of comfort and privilege, Sally remembers little about her mother, who died in a violent argument with the Duke. By the time she's just 8 years old, the Duke has remarried and had a son, Eddie. While Sally is her father's daughter, sharp-witted and resourceful, Eddie is his mother's son, timid and cerebral. When Sally tries to teach young Eddie to be more like their father, her daredevil coaching leads to an accident, and Sally's cast out. 9 years later, she returns, determined to reclaim her place in the family. It's a lot more complicated than she expected, and she enters a world of conflict and lawlessness. This is by the author of The Glass Castle and Half-Broke Horses, in case you didn't figure that one out. Next, we've got Loyalty from Lisa Scottoline, which is coming on March 28th. Franco Fioravanti is a lemon grower toiling on the estate of a baron. Determined to secure a better future, he will do anything to prove his loyalty to the baron. But when the baron asks him to kidnap a little boy named Dante, Franco makes a decision that will change his life and even the history of Sicily forever. Gaetano Catalano is an idealistic young lawyer and a member of a secret society of aristocrats who investigate crime in Palermo. He sets out to find the boy and punish the kidnapper, but his mission leads him to a darker place than he ever imagined. And meanwhile, Mafaldo Poncari is a new mother rejoicing at the birth of her daughter Lucia when disaster strikes. And Alfredo Di Antonio is a reclusive goatherd under the constant threat of being discovered as a Jew. How the lives of these characters collide makes Loyalty an epic tale of good versus evil. The story twists and turns to its monumental showdown. And I recommend that all of you join Lisa at Lisa Live. She does these Lisa Live events on Facebook on 7:30 on Monday nights. And what she does is she shows some video of her time when she was in Sicily, that where she talks about all the different places that you're going to see in the book. She started this, I want to say in like November or maybe even sooner. And she's going to be continuing it right until the night before the book comes out. And then these videos are going to be placed up on the website so that you can actually see her talking about the different places in Sicily and why she framed them into her story. And so for those of you who only know Sicily from, watching that show that was on HBO, you know what? If you only know it from there, you got to watch Lisa's side as well. Though I was joking for a long time that I would watch Lisa and then go watch an episode of The White Lotus. So I had all these other feelings about what was going on in Sicily. Lots of fun, folks. I think we've got some April titles to look forward to. These are ones we haven't shared with you yet. Starting with Kate Morton. Kate Morton is back with a novel called Homecoming and getting such a great reception. Heard her speak about it, and I am so looking forward to reading this. Adelaide Hills, Christmas Eve, 1959. The end of a scorching hot day beside a creek in the grounds of the grand and mysterious house. A local delivery man makes a terrible discovery. A police investigation is called, and the small town of Tabilla becomes embroiled in one of the most shocking and perplexing murder cases in the history of South Australia. Many years later, Jess is a journalist in search of a story. Having lived and worked in London for almost 20 years, she now finds herself laid off from her full-time job and struggling to make ends meet. Phone call out of nowhere summons her back to Sydney, where beloved grandmother Nora has suffered a fall and been raced to the hospital. At Nora's house, Jeff discovers a book that chronicles the police investigation into a long-buried crime, the Turner family tragedy of Christmas Eve, 1959. It's only when Jess skims through the pages that she finds a shocking connection between her own family and this once infamous event. So there we've got, and it was interesting. I heard Kate speaking, and she said she left London during the pandemic and went back to Australia. And while she was there, the story kind of found her, and she found herself writing it. So interesting. Homecoming works in a couple of different ways if you're looking at the title of this book. The House is on Fire is by Rachel Beanland. I absolutely love Florence Adler Swims Forever. I've heard Rachel speak about this book, and it's on my towering list, the towering pile, that one that has more than 10 books on it. It's coming on April 4th. Richmond, Virginia, 1811. In the height of the world's winter social season, the General Assembly is in session, and many of Virginia's gentlemen planners, along with their wives and children, have made the long and arduous journey to the capital in hopes of whiling away the darkest days of the year. The city's only theater, the Charleston-based Placid and Green Company, puts on 2 plays a night to meet the demands of a populace that's done looking for enlightenment at the front of the church. On the night after Christmas, the theater is packed with more than 600 holiday revelers. When it goes up in flames in the middle of a performance, 4 theater goers make a series of split-second decisions that will not only affect their own lives, but those of countless others. In the days following the fire, as news of the disaster spreads across the United States, the paths of these 4 people will become forever intertwined. I'm really looking forward to this. I've heard her speak about it. It's a real historic event. She writes about that as well and how the story found her. Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Oh, come on, you know her, and you know this is going to be romantic comedy for sure. Sally Mills is a sketch writer for the Night Owls, a late night live comedy show that airs every Saturday. Wonder what show. A couple of heartbreaks under her belt, she's long abandoned the search for love. But when Sally's friend and fellow writer Fanny Horse begins dating Annabelle, a glamorous actress who guest hosted the show, he joins the not-so-exclusive group of talented but average-looking and even dorky men at the show who've gotten romantically involved with incredibly beautiful and accomplished women. Sally channels her annoyance into a sketch called The Danny Horse Rule, poking fun at this phenomenon while underscoring how unlikely it is that the reverse would happen for a woman. Enter Noah Brewster, a pop music sensation with a reputation for dating models, who signed on to both host and musical guest for this week's show. Dazzled by his charms, Sally hits it off with Noah instantly. As they collaborate on one sketch after together, she becomes wonder if there might actually be sparks flying. So we're all thinking about the show Saturday Night Live. And here's like my Paul Simon story to go with this. Paul Simon said that his kids can tell the moment that he fell in love with his wife because it's chronicled when he looked at her on Saturday Night Live when he was standing on the other end of the camera, they're filming her. So there's your Paul Simon trivia for the day. Romantic comedy. I think we all know the show they're talking about. True love does happen. Who knows? She was singing. He's a singer too. He was hosting. Next, we've got The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. Love Sally Hepworth. She's coming to the States in April. She's going to be doing some touring. Don't know the dates yet, but if you're anywhere near Sally, you want to go to one of her events. There's a cottage on a cliff. Gabe and Pippa's dream house in a sleepy coastal town. But their perfect house hides something sinister. The tall cliffs have become a popular spot for people to end their lives. Night after night, Gabe comes to their rescue, literally talking them off the ledge, until he doesn't. When Pippa discovers that Gabe knew the victim, the questions spiral. Did the victim jump? Was she pushed? And would Gabe, the love of Pippa's life, her soulmate, lie? As the perfect facade of their marriage begins to crack, the deepest and darkest secrets begin to unravel. Do you ever notice that in a lot of these books, it's the deepest and darkest secrets? Must remember that as a line. Deepest and darkest secrets when you write a thriller. Next, we've got The Golden Doves by Martha Hall Kelly. You know her as the author of The Lilac Girls, coming April 18th. American Josie Anderson and Parisian Arlette Leroux are thrilled to be working in the French resistance, stealing so many Nazi secrets that they become known as the Golden Doves, renowned across France and hunted by the Gestapo. When they are finally arrested and taken to the Ravensbrück concentration camp, along with their loved ones, a reclusive Nazi doctor does unspeakable things to Josie's mother, a celebrated Jewish singer, and Arlette's son is stolen from her, never to be seen again. A decade later, the Doves fall headlong into a dangerous dual mission. Josie is working for U.S. Army intelligence and accepts an assignment to hunt down the infamous doctor, while a mystery man tells Arlette he may have found her son. The Golden Doves embark on a quest across Europe and ultimately to French Guiana, discovering a web of terrible secrets, must put themselves in grave danger to finally secure justice and protect the ones they love. There we've got those two women who are the Golden Doves. Next, we've got Symphony of Secrets by Brendan Slocumb. This is a man that you would not have known the name of last year until he wrote the absolutely brilliant book of The Violinist. As one of the world's preeminent experts on the famed 20th century composer, Frederick Delaney, Bern Hendricks knows everything there is to know about the man behind the music. Mallory Roberts, a direct descendant of Delaney, asked for Bern's help, authenticating a newly discovered piece, which may be his lost opera Red. He jumps at the chance. 1920s Manhattan, Josephine Reed meets struggling musician Fred Delaney. But where Delaney struggles, Josephine soars. She's a natural prodigy who hears beautiful music and the sounds of the world around her. With Josephine as the silent partner, Delaney's career takes off. In the present day, Bern and his tech-savvy acquaintance, Ebony, begin to uncover more clues that indicate Delaney may have had help in composing his most successful work. And they become in the crosshairs of a powerful organization that will stop at nothing to keep their secret hidden. I just love the cover of this book. Once again, I'm looking to see what Brendan did. A couple of years ago, he didn't have a book contract. He actually put up a picture a couple of days ago and said, this is when I got my 2-book deal. And here he is being able to write like another, fabulous book that we're all looking forward to. I'm going to bring on to your attention. Remember, I've talked about Kent's novella before. Here we've got some original stories by some of your favorite authors, Lisa Scottoline, Lisa Unger, Janelle Brown, J.T. Ellison, and Vicar Methos that are now available on Kindle and on audio. And what Pigeon Tony's Last Stand is the one I know best at this point. It's one of her Nunzio and Rosada series. It's a story taken from there. So from some of your favorite authors, you can listen to or read just a short story in the Amazon Original Stories series. So something else to be looking forward to, some authors that you really enjoy. We're going to talk about some notable February paperback releases. The first is The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post by Alison Pataki. This is the book that I read last year, and it sort of spoiled me for historical fiction for the rest of the year. It is so, so well done. It's now available in paperback, and we're actually just put up, or it's going up, a contest on reading group guides that if you'd like to read this book with your book club, jump on and tell us what your book group is reading this month, and you'll be entered to win one of 3 sets of 12 copies of this book for your group. Next, we've got The Cage by Bonnie Kistler. Only one of them gets out alive. This was a Bets on Selection last year, and I interviewed Bonnie about the book, also interviewed Allison. Sally is here with her, the younger wife. The first three and the last one are Bets on Selections of mine too, just so you know. And I did interview all the authors except Sally. This is The Younger Wife, Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment, and The Long Weekend by Gailey Macmillan. So there you've got some notable paperback releases from us. Recently, these are some authors I've spoken with. It's Deborah Goodrich Royce about Reef Road, Allegra Goodman, the author of Sam, and Danny Shapiro from Signal Fires. By the way, the Signal Fires picture, you see that? It drives me crazy that I have my hair elastic on my wrist. Just know every time I look at that picture, it makes me absolutely bad. Next, I would talk about a special contest we're running right now about a book that I read and completely enjoyed because it was like a getaway. One of those travel books that you're armchair travel that you're reading. It's Things I Wish I Told My Mother by Susan Patterson and Susan DeLallo with James Patterson. Yes, Susan is married to James. Yes, let's make the connection there, folks. Both Susans lost their moms in their 90s. And they came up with the idea for this book of like things you would like to tell your mother, things you'd like to do. And what these people in this book, this mother-daughter, go to Paris. And they also go up to find her family, which is up in Norway. And it's just a really fabulous book because the scenes that are written in Paris are so rich. You feel like you're eating the food. You feel like you're seeing the sights. And the way the mother and daughter communicate with each other is just so much fun. The daughter is somebody who travels like with a duffel bag and a pair of jeans and t-shirt. And her mother like would never go out without being completely, makeup done, hair perfect, her Vuitton luggage all lined up, totally different people. So what we're doing is we're giving away 50 advance copies of this book to people who say they can read it by March 31st. The contest is open till a week from Friday, and say that you can read it. And also I'm going to interview the two Susans. And if you've got questions for them, let me know and I'll ask the questions for you once you finish reading the book. You only have till March 31st to read the book. So do keep that in mind. We're looking for people that really have time to finish it. No lying, folks. And it's quick. It's a brisk read. Then we're going to talk to you about another event. It's called February of Forge. Forge Publishers is putting on this event on February 23rd. And they're going to be two different programs. And we're sharing them with you because they sound like they're really going to be terrific. First one is your book club TBR, like what to read with your book club at 1 o'clock Eastern time, a virtual event moderated by Kristen Sevick. And we've got all these authors featured in the newsletter over the next couple of weeks. We're going to feature how you can sign up for this event and more about the authors who are going to be featured. And then the evening event is Murder They Wrote at 8 o'clock, moderated by the aforementioned Hank Philby Ryan and Rita Woods. And it's featuring all these authors and talking about how they write about murder and more about their books. It's going to be a fun day of events. It's 2/23/23. Get it, folks? And we'll have more in our newsletters, but so make sure you stay on top of this. So I think both of them are going to be really fun evenings to attend. Also, our event on February 22nd at 8 p.m., we'll be speaking with Fiona Davis, who is absolutely magically wonderful to speak with about the historical fiction that she writes, talking about the Magnolia Palace, which was an instant New York Times bestseller. It's now available in paperback. And what's really interesting is this is one book of hers that I have not read. I cannot believe this. So I will be delving into read the Magnolia Palace. I'll be reading along with you for this one. February 22nd, 8 o'clock at night. We also, if you have a question that you want to ask on screen, for those who are not camera shy, feel free to send me a note. The subject line Magnolia, give me your question. If you don't want to ask the question, you want me to do the same thing, write it to Magnolia and say, camera shy, Carol, you asked the question. Worked out really, really well the way we did that with Nita Prose's event last time. So I interviewed a bit, went to the people live, and then we nested other questions in before going to the audience. We also have our next Bookaccino live preview, which will be a preview of books releasing from March 7th through April 4th and a peek ahead of May. And that'll happen on Wednesday, March 8th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sign up is going to be available on Bookreporter later on today. Also, I will send you sign up links for these things afterwards for those who are attending live. And also anybody who has signed up will get that with the when the video is available as well. Okay. So thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's always so much fun to be able to bring these books to you and be able to share a little peek ahead of what's going on, and books that you want to put on you, those high stacks, just make them higher. It's not going to hurt, really. Make 2 stacks so they don't fall on you. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We so appreciate your being part of this.